coin, whether it be the eagle or the Royal Canadian maple leaf in Canada. I just want your comments on that, please.
Well, I think they're running low on supplies because people are wising up and they're buying them. But, you know,
why isn't gold shooting through the roof?
Look, it will. I mean, don't try to figure out why it hasn't. Just buy it before it does. You know, in the short run, markets are irrational. Look, the U.S. dollar is rising right now. It should be collapsing.
What do you think about buying silver? I mean, because a lot of people can't afford
I think there's
gold.
a portion of your portfolio that should be in precious metals at all times.
Let me just talk to me. I'm a guy who lived, you know, in a very modest home, working class family. Yeah. We didn't have gold. We didn't have a portfolio.
Fine, buy silver. They behave in similar ways. In fact, silver is actually used in industry, so it has more applications than gold does.
Hang on to your copper pennies, the ones that were minted before 1981. They're worth 2 or 3 cents.
I always, hey, Glenn, I can tell you why the dollar is rallying in the last couple of weeks.
Real quick.
Because Europe and Japan are even worse shape than we are.
No,
yes,
not.
Europe,
All right,
Europe
hang
is a
on, I've got to
catastrophe.
take a break. Back with more questions, more of your calls in a minute. It's your economy and your questions. The number is 877-SAY-BECK. That's 877-729-2325. I'm with Peter Schiff, Ali Velshi, and Stephen Moore, and we are taking your phone calls. I want to ask you guys a question. I really, truly think that right now, the American people, you could make the case, instead of, it's 9/11, go out and spend money. You could make the case right now and say, America, these are the things we have to do. We're going to have to cut our budget like crazy. We are going to slash. We're going to lose an awful lot of things right now. But you know what? We're going to cut them. And when we cut them, we're going to come to you and we're going to ask you for higher taxes. And I think you would actually have a shot at winning today because Americans know in their gut. But they're not going to give the country another dime unless they start slashing this budget.
I hope you're right, and I wish they would, because that's the reality.
Last week was the reality.
They could have done it, but they haven't done it. Everybody's still, the presidential candidates are still talking about the cuts that they're going to make. The math doesn't add up.
They still want to try to resurrect the phony economy that we had. They won't let us reconstruct a sound economy based on savings and productions. Somebody could just level with the American public and let them know that we have to suffer through this recession, because if we don't, we're going to get something much worse if the government tries to keep us borrowing and spending.
One of the big jokes of the presidential campaign, Barack Obama keeps talking about the, quote, investment deficit. He's saying government isn't spending enough. The budget is up gone from $2 trillion to $3 trillion in 7 years. Where is the investment deficit? All we've been doing is spending more money on this program.
We lost 156,000 jobs. 156,000 jobs. The government grew 9,000 jobs.
It's unbelievable. It's the only sector of the economy that's been growing jobs has been government and healthcare.
We have to support. They don't produce anything. We have to support them.
Exactly.
They're drained.
It's
let me go to Marilyn. She's in North Carolina. Hello, Marilyn.
Hi. I know everyone's been talking about the crisis, and my concern is I'm a disabled veteran. What's going to happen to individuals like myself that rely on that government pension to survive?
You're going to have a tough time, because the value of that pension is going to erode through inflation. You're going to see your cost of living just go higher and higher and higher. And unfortunately, it's going to be very difficult for you. And I really feel for people in your situation, the government is shooting at you.
We already have. I mean, this is a real sad thing. Social Security. I mean, gang, come on. Nobody believes you're going to get Social Security. You're not going to get it. Period. You're not going to get it. For those who are on Social Security right now, you're in a real problem and a real bind, because inflation...
Yeah, by definition, it is the most fixed income. And as Peter says, we've seen this problem. We've been eating away at our ability for a dollar to buy what it did a year ago, whether it's energy prices or food, and nobody thinks that's going to stop. Sure, we're celebrating that oil's a little under $90 a barrel. Still a whole lot more than it was a year ago.
Stephen or anybody, do you guys at all think... I have been talking about the perfect storm. It's not just the economy, which is different than it was in 1933 or 1929. It's different. The fundamentals aren't there. We don't have the steel industry, et cetera, et cetera. But you also have England now on critical alert. You've got enemies all over the country that are coming at us. You don't have cheap energy anymore. You've got Russia and Iran and everything else that want to be able to push us over the edge. How do you not...
It is dangerous for a country of this size and importance to be economically vulnerable like
because you know what happens, Glenn? I'm the optimist here. I'm not one of the four horses of the apocalypse. I think that our country, we always come to the right solution. But we always do all the wrong things first, but ultimately we come up with the right plan.
We'll be back.
We're going to do that here. It may take a couple of years.
the fundamentals of the economy aren't sound, and we're going to have to do a lot of work moving forward. So if we can stop the bleeding with this package, implement it effectively, and then move forward to deal with the broader problems on Main Street, then hopefully we can start getting our economy back on track.
We are facing the worst economic crisis ever, and these guys are in fairyland. The Dow has suffered its biggest single-day point loss in history. That's the second time in 2 weeks that we've reset that record. Everybody's talking about this mess, and nobody is talking about it, I think, with any kind of credibility. The same experts that were doing all the talking are the same guys that have been calling me crazy for the last year and a half. Plus, if you're a hedge fund manager, maybe you understand all the financial lingo, but, you know, I don't. I'm a big fat dummy. You know, I spent 2 years trying to figure out what the hell all of this means. And you know what? The minute you start getting into all of this this financial talk, you're talking nothing but mumbo and jumbo to most people, right? And people have no idea what you're talking about, and you're not making common sense at all. Who's saying things in a way that we can understand? Tonight, we're trying to do that. We're trying to answer your calls, your questions live. The number is 877-SAY-BECK. That's 877-729-2325. With me tonight, Peter Schiff, president of Euro-Pacific Capital and author of Crash Proof, How to Profit from the Coming Economic Collapse. When did you write that book, Peter?
3 years ago. Came out 2 years ago.
Stephen Moore, economics editorial writer for the Wall Street Journal. He's Mr. Happy Pants today, although he doesn't look like it. He's the co-author of The End of Prosperity. That doesn't sound real helpful.
I just wrote it. Perfect timing, huh?
And joining me now is Bob O'Brien, stocks editor for Barron's Online. Let me go take a phone call here quick. Let's go to Lynn in North Carolina. Hello, Lynn.
Hi, big fan.
Thank you.
I have a question, and this is for just people like me, Joe Schmo, working part-time at a grocery store trying to make ends meet. When they talk about this bailout, and they say that the government is going to take on all this bad debt, and I know that's not just asset-related debt. There's a lot of signature loans, credit card debt, that kind of thing. If and when they do this, they take it over from these big banks like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, things like that. How is that going to affect, say, the people like me on my end who are getting the collection calls and the credit calls and the, you know, is that going to go away, or are we going to start getting calls from the government?
Well, the hope is that this will stop the bleeding, that these banks won't, you know, there's a fear that there's a domino effect and that you'll have one bank after another fail. So the idea here is to stop that bleeding by getting rid of their bad assets. But guess what? Guess who's taking them over, Glenn? The taxpayers. And I guarantee you the taxpayers are going to overpay for these assets. We're going to be taking on the most toxic assets. The banks are going to get rid of their worst ones, throw them in the taxpayers' laps. How does that make any of us much better?
I saw something in the New York Times that said the Treasury now is trying to decide how to not overpay for those assets that are truly worthless. Why are we paying anything for them?
The whole point of the bailout is to overpay. If they don't overpay, they're going to bankrupt the entities that are selling. But the answer,
but you know what? There are still people in Washington saying that this is going to be a bargain for the taxpayers. It's crazy.
They're just lying. The answer to the caller's question, the way she's going to get hit is because in order to